And I'd just like to remind everybody that they are awesome. This is the weekly conversation that we have about the 10100. The idea of the locally um, focused cooperative network of businesses that basically are there to meet the needs of local consumers, but also the needs of the workers that comprise the membership of the business there. So we have this conversation because this is still very much work in progress and definitely trying to hash out some of the ideas, which, given that it's Laura and I today, we've already gone over some of the foundational stuff, so maybe we can perhaps work out some finer details, or uh, uh, work on maybe some formatting and stuff, because I had a very curious thing happen to me when Curtis had let me know that he invited like 50 people to join the 100 group the other day. And I got to thinking, oh, geez, I don't think we're quite ready to kind of open this up to strangers.
Uh, that's a bit. We want to talk to the core businesses first. So we want to find the people that are initially interested in doing it, and then once we get that started, then we open it up to more people. So that was I would definitely say that was premature.
Yeah.
Unless one of them wants to on the core business and was like, gung ho to start it up, then it's like, oh well, this seemed premature, but we, the plus side, we got this other, this particular person that we needed to get the thing off the ground. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
and like I don't know, did you get a chance to read over the little welcome message that I put on the posted to the top of the 100 group there?
Probably.
I had started it out originally in the day where after budget and between budget and this is a brief overview was everything else that you see on page number 2. I had shared it with Anne, who said,
right. I haven't had a chance to read that yet. You sent it to me, and because I slept in today, I was basically get up, get ready for the meeting. So I will look over it.
So it's kind of funny. If you go to the link I shared with you, there's like a little I'll put a little page break in here. So everything where the line is, what's on page 2 is everything in between the line. So Anne, bless her heart, I asked her to kind of look it over, and she had a couple of grammatical errors and suggestions to make. And then she said, "What's the purpose of this?" And I said, "Well, it's so the people, when they come to the 10100 webpage on the Facebook, they'll get a brief overview, a quick glimpse as to what this is all about." She was like, "Okay, what you written was a lot of really good detail, way too much for what you want." So um, the rest is chopped from basically the first page, and that's what we ended up with. And I think it kind of gives a quick, brief overview. You're going to get
This is like an About Us page on like a website, from what I'm gathering.
I've just made it the top of the an announcement, I guess you could say. I figured, oh, you liked it earlier.
Yes, I liked it, but I hadn't got a chance to open it and fully read it because I was running around trying to make it on time to the meeting from
With the good times.
I'll give a proper reading to it. Right now I'm just sort of skimming it. Yeah, this is
I think I put on the dorkiest shirt I've got. This
I'll
just
give
needs
it
a bow tie
a go.
or a tie, period. Jeez.
So I'll give it a better reading later, but yeah, I sort of agree with Anne. As that's more of like an about page, but if you're doing a Facebook page, I would condense like what would I some of the details that like people will, if they're interested, they will look it up. If
Hmm.
they're not interested, they don't need to know. So
No, it's totally true.
so the brief overview. Uh, Please join in the weekly conversation during the quarantine. Definitely include the message of please join us for the overview for anybody who's interested. Will want to learn more and get in on that. So I would definitely put that
Ooh.
there so people know about it. Um,
Which put a flag up. One of the things I did want to discuss is formatting for meetings and stuff. Slime my pencil.
like I would say, a lot of this is websites. The thing with Facebook too is like you want the about, so you do want that information there for
I mean, I've
people
got
because
access
otherwise
to.
you're having to go over it again and again and again. So what you would do, I would think, is put it there, but put a good space in between. So because there isn't like a separate about for further information, you should basically just have the main page information bit. Whereas like on a website, you have like, this is our mission statement is posted on the main page, and then there's like an about, which then breaks it into further details. They don't really have that option on a Facebook page. So what you would do is basically the whole first bit to the end of join us on Zoom during quarantine would be like one chunk, and then several spaces in a line kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then maybe put a title that says further information. So if somebody's like, oh, that's really interesting, I wonder how this all works and how it breaks down, then they can go down further and be like, oh, further information, and then keep reading.
Right. Like have everything so it's like in bite-sized chunks, so you get all the
Yeah,
information that you're gonna have when
because
you.
if there's somebody who's mildly interested and they're kind of like, what's this, what is this group
Yeah.
about, and then they see this
Oh.
wall of information, they'll be like, oh, never mind, I can't
Yeah.
be bothered, and will click off. But if there's like a short paragraph, several spaces, and then more information kind of thing,
I,
they're like, oh, I don't need to read the more information, but this short little intro will give me a rundown. Then they're more
mhm.
likely to read it and maybe get interested and involved.
I have another. So, let's see here. Oh shoot, there's so much going on in my head right at the moment, and it all gets jumbled and disarrayed. Uh, Sorry, what was the last thing you were talking about? Could you just repeat it?
So basically I was saying that like people when they're looking at business, like if they're signing on to a Facebook group kind of thing and they're interested, what is this about, and they're faced with like this wall
Right.
of things, so you want to break it down.
Yeah.
So like take the intro to the end of join us for our groups meetings and stuff would be where I would put a space and then put a title that says further information. That
Yeah.
way if somebody does want to know more, the information is there for them. But if they just want a brief rundown, just sort of whatever, they're not going to get overwhelmed with information and then completely just decide, no, never mind, I can't be bothered reading all of this.
Right. Yeah.
So that
So if you
like
get
it off.
to
So
it, yeah, and it becomes its own automatic sieve at that point, right? So you can
exactly.
filter out people who are interested versus people who aren't,
Yeah.
and they can just self-filter. hey, workers cooperative, no one sound. Ooh, geez, sign me up, right? Or versus
Yeah,
a worker cooperative, versus, what's that?
yeah, exactly.
Right? Um, versus workers cooperative, I'm not into that, kind of, uh, communist stuff, and I'm kind of like, you're lost.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, my
um,
argument whenever somebody's like, blah, 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 I hate communism, just look at Soviet Russia. Like, first of all, Soviet Russia was only calling itself
right.
communist. It stopped being communist when one person took all the power and all the money and everybody else suffered. That's a fascist dictatorship. And because there's one person gets more than everybody else, it's no, or like, and one person has more power than everybody else, and
Yeah.
everybody else suffers and has basically no say um in their own lives and their own sections. And it's no longer a communist state, because democracy is super important for communism to be, by definition, that
Hmm.
basically it's like you could call yourself a llama, but it's not true. They just, it's easier to tell the world, yeah, we're communist, because if they admitted to being a fascist dictatorship, they would have been in a lot more trouble. It was marketing,
I mean,
pure marketing.
I would hesitate to call them a fascist dictatorship. They were definitely authoritarian, but fascism was definitely coming from a very, very different frame of reference. Even if at the end of the day they both produced horrible, horrible results that on the outside kind of look similar. I'm pretty sure
Well, with like My
methodology
Way or the
mattered.
Highway, any dissidents were sent to
Yeah.
camps. Like, that is a very fascist thing to do. And
Uh,
that was like their
yeah.
number one thing, is like, oh, you said something against the party, we're sending you to a camp and
Yeah.
whatever, and you're gonna whatever. It's like, that is like fascism 101.
So I think all fascists are authoritarians, but not all authoritarians are fascists. Is
Huh.
the probably the right way of framing that or categorizing that. At least that's how I conceive of it. So it's like Stalin definitely an authoritarian, not a fascist. The communists definitely authoritarians, or at least the Stalinists. Um, but definitely not fascists, as evidenced by the fact that the fascists, put them up against the wall and shot them. So um, yeah, some interesting thoughts there. Completely a different bunny trail because it doesn't negate the spirit of what you were saying at all, which I think is pretty bang on. Because you're right. What we want to do is to give people the bite-sized chunks, and of course, I'm James, 15,000 words Harris. So it's very difficult for me to deliver information concisely, although as you mentioned before, we've kind of hammered this conversation out about the 10-100 to death. And on one hand, I do get the idea that we can only talk about the same thing so many times. Um, and for me, what I'm looking for are for hooks and ways that we can organize and bring other people in and actually start turning this in from a conversation again about the same thing into something that actually puts businesses in storefronts downtown and pays the workers living wages, while at the same time supplying absolute needs to our community, or what our community needs absolutely, I should say. um, and so help with brevity, I'm sure, would be useful, or being brief, or getting to the point, as um, people have told me before. And we actually had a very interesting conversation with Curtis this afternoon about the write up that I had created there with regards to giving a brief overview of the about what the 10-100 is about. Oh, we almost need some sort of like FAQ type thing. I always find those helpful.
Yeah, actually, but we don't. FAQ, I mean, do we have people asking
I was just gonna say,
frequently asked questions? We're really, really new here.
yeah, we really are. It looks like Curtis is joining us. You know, it's interesting because, like again, we did have a bunch of shall we say, like newcomers join the Facebook page, which I'm really grateful for because it kind of put my ass into high gear. So I had to start writing out the welcome thing, which really got me thinking about what the next stage is and the next step is. You know, because once this quarantine is over, I really want to start utilizing the Old Sound hub space as a place to start inviting people. Because by that point in time, I want to have the structure in place, like a format for these Monday meetings. And I bet you, I expect, as I've been thinking about it, at some point, um, it might not make sense to have Monday meetings every single Monday, or it might make sense to kind of change the kind of weekly meetings. I don't know. I'm of two minds about it because it's like, on one hand, I don't want to burn people out. On the other hand, if consistency and regularity breeds energy,
Hmm.
I think, that's certainly my feeling. I have zero empirical data to back that up. That's the layover that I've got from being trained to be a church planter and a missionary, is the importance of creating regular meetings and ongoing things in a regular format. Um, and I
Oh,
what was that?
what happened? My screen went dark.
Oh, are you plugged in?
No, I was worried, but I'm at 74%, so I was like, did my computer just weird. I don't know.
I know that sometimes
Plugged in
if
now anyway, just
it's gonna sometimes with technology, if it's not plugged in or something, if it's running on battery, it'll like start powering down screens and
I think
things.
I clicked off of Zoom, so my computer didn't realize I was still in a call because I wasn't actually in the application that keeps it from going to sleep. That's the only, like, that's, I don't know.
Modern technology, eh?
I know. Fiddly.
It's such a wonderful pain to have. Um, Shoot. Yeah. So having like and we talked about this the other time, having like a regular set aside time. We definitely don't have to talk for 2 hours about the 10-100 idea. But I like having a point in time when we can have a regular conversation and get it recorded because I feel like so often when I have conversations with people, ideas come out that I sometimes lose. And having an opportunity for uh, to have a discussion specifically about the 10100 with other people, and starting to cultivate a culture of like dreaming about or visioning what this system can look like and what it can do, and encouraging each other by talking about it. And I don't know. I might be a fool for thinking that that has a positive effect in galvanizing a community around an idea. Um, I'd be interested in knowing your thoughts on the idea, if you have any.
Definitely regular meetings are key. Um, at least until we get this thing up and running, at which point they don't have to be as frequent because people will have the jobs and we'll have the things and we'll have all these other, we'll
Oh
going
yeah.
to work and stuff, and then we shift into like the monthly or bi-weekly meetings. But definitely the hub as being a space. If it gets to a point where we're not regularly there, I wonder about making pamphlets. with a basic rundown of what it is, and maybe leaving them in the hub so that even
Hmm.
on days when we're not working there or something like that, or if somebody comes in and I can't make the actual meeting to find out or something, they can go in and then, oh, here's a pamphlet about what it basically is if you're curious, and then what time the meetings are or whatever, and then update it as we switch to something else so that people can then still get the information that they're interested in, even if they can't make the meetings. Just a
Hmm.
thought.
Right. So my basic outline timeline for where we're at, the way I conceive of it is we're kind of like in an alpha in the development of a program, and we're in the process of trying to anticipate what kind of structure we're going to need as we start to fill in people into this enterprise, um, and shoot, lost my train of thought. Nope, it's gone. Oh well,
um
it does happen from time to time, I'm afraid. What was the last thing I said?
I was saying about pamphlets, and you were saying about it being early.
Oh, alpha, right?
Yep.
We're creating the structure, and ideally, by the time we start inviting strangers off the street and like having pamphlets and start inviting people into weekly meetings, I would almost want to have uh, um, sort of like a, for lack of a better term, like a one meeting that is almost designed for people who are just brand new to the idea, you know. And it's designed to bring people in from the community for the first time to be exposed to the idea, or to be exposed to it from a single place where it can be presented in a clear, concise manner, in nice bite-sized
I
chunks.
When I was briefly looking into financial advising, because the company that approached me about being involved said that they were totally different from other financial advisors, and to their credit, they are, but they're still very capitalist minded. And I think I
Yeah,
left when they said something about people who work on the ground and in shops and stuff that are, complain about having to work extra hours without pay or just being self entitled. I was like, no, you don't get it, and I left. I was like,
jeez.
you
I
assholes.
was involved with the same group of people at one point. I was it the people
They
from the
mentioned
front,
that
or
in a
was that?
meeting, and I was so offended. I didn't say anything, but I'm sitting there seething, right? But anyway, that's beside the point. This particular group
We're gonna have to
was,
talk about that one later. Whew.
oh my god, oh, get my blood boiling. Um, the uh the the group in question, they had, like, I think it was once a month they had a meeting, so that they would have like a set meeting. They'd set their evening aside. They'd had like snacks, not a lot of snacks, water, and then they
Yeah,
had this presentation that they'd
yeah.
give, where it's like,
Oh,
if
that
you're
was they
interested.
had the
And
Thursday
like,
night meeting,
that
right?
as a concept is
Yeah,
like, yeah, because if there's people that are regularly coming in, they're like, what is this?
yeah,
And it's free to attend and everything like that, where you're just curious about how
absolutely.
the business works. It's actually a very good idea to set that aside. So, and they basically gave the same presentation every time, same information. They might, upgrade the graphics on their PowerPoint presentation from time to time, but and they also said, like, recruit people, bring them in, et cetera,
Yeah,
et cetera. Whereas I mean, if you're, I don't, for something that is less, I don't know if we'd need to put in a serious recruiting method. But if we get people that are interested and
yeah,
they're new and they're like, what is this? How does it work? And they're like,
yeah.
okay, this is our meeting. We have it once a month. We have a meeting where we explain all this stuff. It's on this date. If you're truly interested, then ask for, and you work evenings or whatever, take, or whatever, when this time is, book it off, say that you're interested in that, like, that you've got a meeting you need to attend. Tell
It
them it's a
seems.
doctor's appointment if they're like, you can't ever take time off.
Yeah.
Um, and just say, and just like come and attend this meeting because we have it once a month, and if you can't make this month's meeting, there will be another one the month after, but there, you know, or because then it's a
Right.
set.
Yeah. I like that idea. Let me suss out from you what your feeling is on the sense of timing though. Because like when I think
It
about
is
this,
tough.
there's hmm?
That is tough. Although, better idea.
I'm
The
listening.
only thing is, I think with the meeting, it's more interactive and personal. But create a presentation digitally, which I mean, I can do because I made YouTube videos where I explained stuff, and like just explain this is this and this is how it works, and then have that on the roster. So if somebody's like, how does this work? What's it, whatever, you email them this video,
Yep.
you know, or a link, put it on YouTube under the
Oh,
whatever, and
oh
just
yeah.
send them the link to the video and be like, this is the presentation that explains everything. If you have any questions, call me and then we can answer any other questions over the phone or meet them for coffee. And that might be a much better sort of way of managing that than like trying to get everybody to like book time off work to, if they have to make a certain meeting at a certain time, because people's schedules are all over the place. Capitalism does not want us to have Sundays or evenings or any kind of weekends or holidays or any time off
And
from
yet
work
we're in the middle of a
ever.
pandemic, and here we're getting it anyways, whether we want it or not.
So in order to be like malleable to the system that exists, man, I'm in an anarchistic, not anarchistic, but like in a rebellious mood today.
I don't, yeah, no apologies, absolutely.
Just like just ragging on. Anyway, but anyway, it would be more accessible for people's chaotic schedules because, like, you've got bartenders, restaurant workers.
Mhm.
Like if you work in a restaurant or even if you work in a store on evenings or something like that, there are so many people that Monday, Tuesday is their weekend.
Exactly.
And it's
So
like, oh,
continuing to have,
why don't you go out on Friday nights? Well, I work Friday nights and Saturday nights, and I don't want to be hungover Saturday. Although a lot of people just show up to work hungover on Saturday because they don't, because it has to be the Friday. But yeah, um, yeah,
okay,
it's a
so how's this for an idea? Because I think um, having an outreach meeting once a month, um, timing wise, pre-calamity, beginning of the downfall of capitalism, um, I might think that once a month might be all we could get away with it. But in the
yeah.
current climate, I expect there's going to be a lot of hunger and a lot of like there's this expectation or this sense of urgency. That's the word I'm looking for, urgency, to all this. And because I'm thinking about we mentioned our mutual group that we share in past history, and I was pretty sure they met bi-monthly for their outreach or their explanation meeting.
Was
Does
it
that
bi-weekly
track?
or just monthly? So I thought it was just monthly that they meet for their outreach thing, and then they have. Maybe I'm wrong, but I was pretty sure it was just once a month.
Maybe. When I was with them, they were trying to do it bi-monthly. So
Okay, well, maybe they changed that because it didn't work as for their schedules or whatever. I don't know.
I can
Because when I
imagine.
was there, and like I was there like quite a bit after you, I think it was only once a
Yes.
month. But if you want, you can ask your parents. I'm pretty that they might still be involved.
Yes, they are. But that's an aside. Um, the point of the matter is like um having something regular when people are hungry, when people are out there standing in the unemployment line,
Yeah,
looking for
that's why I like the idea of like make a YouTube video that is accessible and that if
oh
somebody,
yes.
so every time somebody asks, what is this? You're just like, here's the link. This should give you all the information you want. If you want, I can send you the YouTube videos I've already made,
I
so
think
that
I've watched at least half of them, if not more.
okay, so like I try, so like I try to be as entertaining as possible, like crack jokes, I whatever, so that it's
You
like,
dressed up for at least one of them, I seem to recall.
oh, the Halloween one,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
where like every 30 seconds I was, or like every time there was like an edit or something, I'd be in a different, or a slight shift in the subject matter, I'd be in a different costume.
Yeah, so the other part of the idea, because we were talking about housing, right?
Mhm.
And with Ollie, he's talking about housing, which was a lot of fun. And certainly one of the inspirations behind the 10100, because the more I think about it, the more like I have my house, I pay my mortgage. Yeah, I paid my mortgage this month. I had to think about that for a second. God. Right. And but it's difficult, and for a lot of us, like that's our biggest concern, is our rent, is how we're going to live in a location and not be subject um to being moved around by or because we've lost a job, or because our landlord decides that they want to move into this income property now, or it's now going to be the place where their brother and sister-in-law now is going to live or something, right? Because these things happen. It's not great. Or you're in a place that's like basically smells like cigarettes and have roaches crawling down the walls, and those are always fun too. Either way, point of the matter is, I always get to thinking about one of the great benefits of the 10100, of course, is the benefit programs, and the idea that have I broken down like the way different adjunct businesses work versus benefit businesses and side businesses? Probably ad nauseum, right?
Yeah, adjunct versus, yeah, side. And so there's the ones that create profit, the ones that don't, and the ones that are just where it's like, let's see what happens.
Well, it's not. Let's see what happens. They're more designed to be like smaller, like one-off projects or
Oh yes, the one-off
small.
project. So yeah, they'd be like the, oh okay, you want to do this big art project, art installation downtown, and you need funding for it. Okay, we'll give you, yeah.
So, that brings up a good philosophical idea I want to tackle, that Curtis brought up, and I confess I'm not too sure how to work on this. So the problem is this. Um, you have an artist, right? And the artist creates a work of art. Um, who gets the proceeds from the art? And he posited this because I proposed that one of the things you could do with a side business is you could make it your job to basically go into the studio and work on art. That
I'd love
8 hour.
that.
Yeah, right. So now that would be funded exclusively through dividend shares. So it would be another way, instead of getting the dividend shares paid out in one lump sum, um, through capital gains, it would be reinvested back into the cooperative, into the side business, and the cooperative would hold on to your dividends in the side business, and then every time you went to go in and do work for that side business, you would then get disseminated to you at $20 an hour, the money that you set aside, and so you would just budget up maybe 8 hours a week, instead of working at Flagons and Dragons, or wherever it is you happen to be working. Maybe you're doing a couple different shifts here and there. Um, and then for eight of your 8 hours a week, because dividends are worth so much, it might be more like 8 hours a month, but you could still do it. But by the time we get all 10 businesses up and running, and the businesses are like 100% of what the businesses are generating is being put back into uh, 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 dividends, basically, because what else is it going to go into? Um, I mean, the other things that'll go into will be what we propose that we put them into, which is either adjunct businesses, benefit businesses, or a side business. And as far as I can tell, as far as I can imagine, so far, everything that I can think of the um, that this business would for at any rate. So I'm losing it. The point of the matter is, when an artist he makes a side business where they get paid for 8 hours to go work in the studio, um, and then they produce a work of art, who owns the art and who gets the right to determine its worth, and who gets the money, really, if it gets sold. Um,
What I love about the entire concept, and it's being perfectly illustrated in what you were discussing, is that whereas capitalist companies and things, they're all how much money can we make, and let's make billions until we don't know what to do with it. Whereas our cooperative thing is, what do we do with the money? Can we
yeah,
support artists? Can we support this other thing? It's not
yeah,
about making as much money as possible. It's about enriching the community and looking after people and making sure everybody has their basic needs met is the bottom line. And that's honestly just hands down 1 billion% a better idea than just let's have like 3 people make as much money as possible off the back of others. It's this entire system based around how do we enrich the community and make sure everybody's needs are met. Which, I mean, there's going to be some people that are just like, oh, you freaking leftists, you should leave people in the gutters to die, whatever. And
that's okay. They can go get a job
yeah,
elsewhere.
you
I
go
mean,
right ahead and get a
yeah,
job in a factory where you don't make any money, but the guy who owns the company is literally swimming in a swimming pool shaped like a dollar bill, with his face imprinted in like gold bricks on the bottom.
yeah, right.
Yeah. Not to give any billionaires bad ideas as to what to do with their money.
I
Or they
mean,
invested in companies to hopefully make more money. It's like, when you don't know what enough means.
well, and
Anyway, but
yeah,
yeah, I'm on tangenting, but like your idea definitely illustrates that, is like the where you take people can budget their hours and their time, and then like use the amount that they have to take some time aside and work on an art project if they want to.
yeah,
And that is because that's a fundamental thing with artists, is because we are a more sort of like sensitive type of person, and we don't necessarily like working constantly at a job that takes up a lot of our energy. Means that we don't do art
yeah,
because we don't have the time or the energy, because in order to pay our bills we're sacrificing our entire, and like an artist who's not able to do art could end up hospitalized. It is
right.
so critical for a creative person to express that on a very fundamental level. So
Yeah,
allowing them that time to be like, yeah, you can work at at Flagons and Dragons, even if you don't 100% like your entire heart,
yeah,
you love the job here, but then you're like, I have an art project that I need to get out of my body before my body explodes. Great, go do it. Take some time to do it. We'll find somebody to fill the shifts.
yeah,
And then meanwhile, you're also getting paid, and don't worry about, you don't have to worry about like, oh, I want to work on this art project. How do I fund it? How do I do the
exactly.
thing? You just go and do the thing, and it's supported, and it's great, and it would enrich the community and culture. Because I think that's another issue that, on a different level, that bothers me a lot, is that American culture permeates Canadian culture more than like any, like, yes, other countries have American culture. Everybody's seen Sex in the City except for me, because I never cared.
You know what? You know what? You are not the only person who has never watched Sex and the City. I shouldn't say never. I've never watched a complete episode.
Okay, I've never seen more than commercial for or conversation about, because it same thing with like everybody's watching Downton Abbey. It's like I don't care. I'm sorry. It's not. I'm not interested in random women complaining about their relationship things and having like expensive coffees in a cafe. Like I don't care, and I don't care about rich people and their
Yeah.
snotty interconnectedness along with, and then like the way they treat their staff. I don't want to. I know that happened in history. I don't actually want to see it play out in front of me.
I don't want to celebrate it.
I don't. Yes, exactly. That's another tangent. God, I'm tangenty tonight.
Oh, that's okay.
Anyway.
It's all relevant because
Oh, boom. God is returned. I can't move. I'm like stuck in this position to block the pee.
you should almost like. Is there any way you can turn around?
I could. There
Oh,
is
but
a
the
chair on
background
the
is.
other end of the room, but there's also a window, although the sun isn't beaming in that window, but I would have to shift a very grumpy cat. So
go nudge your food dish. She'll go. She'll get up herself.
oh man.
I know it's mean.
It is a bit. What can I do? I'm going. Okay, you know what? I am gonna do this, but I'm gonna do it in a sneaky way. Hey, you. Yeah. Want to sit on Mummy's lap? Yeah, you do.
There you go.
Here you go. Okay, that is better. Now I'm lit from the front. Look at that. That's actually decent lighting. I should do this more often.
There you go. Lighting.
Meet the cat.
Hello, kitten. Oh man, I can't wait until the quarantine is lifted and we can practice.
Yeah, I got another piece for the I guess my uncle forgot to bring in one of the smaller pieces of the drum kit, and he dropped it off like yesterday.
Is it just the single kick or double kick?
Single. There's only one. There's only one. But this arrived from my uncle yesterday.
Oh yeah, that'll be important.
Yeah.
we can probably have one more extra drum.
Probably. Anyway, full drum kit. Yeah, I'm super excited. I do want to get to work on some songs and things like that more, but yeah, anywho. Another
complete aside.
It's probably because we both talked about this for so much, so it's just like there isn't much more for us to talk about regarding the 10100, because the two of us have spoken about it more than like anybody else.
Oh, but I really like I could talk about this all day because there's always something new. Like there's a new facet of things. Like I've only really once, and I think it was with you, gone over how the budgeting process works.
Yes, I think I wrote it down and put notes and posted them.
Yeah, I mean it's
which I can tidy up, or you can tidy up or something. I actually have a friend who wants me to take the kids' books that I wrote. Oh, speaking of kids' books, I don't suppose you'd be interested in reading them and passing them on to your kids and letting me know what their kids think of them. Because I have a friend who said, "Oh man, I love these. Can you turn them into can you transform them into plays so that my kids can play them out during the quarantine and be a little more engaged?" So the 3 kids books that I have finished, minus illustrations, but just the writing the stories anyway, I'm turning into plays. And I haven't started doing that yet because, well, I was going to do it yesterday, but the bushes I had to rescue. I had to do an immediate emergency bush rescue.
Je comprends. I'm sending you a link. I'm gonna let you edit. Sending it to your Facebook here. Boom. So this is a doc that I started working on before my brain petered out, and which happens from time to time. Um, what is this? Oh, somebody already made a suggestion. That's cool. I don't know if that was a human being, though.
I also want to spend some time, and I think I should do this because I mean, there are people working on it, but I'd like to join that in joining the voices that are calling out for guaranteed annual income.
Hmm. Oh, is that happening right now?
Oh, the Green Party is trying to introduce the concept onto the table to how to
Oh,
do it.
I know
Um,
Jagmeet's been working pretty hard for that too.
Yeah. So, and this is a perfect opportunity to do it because so many people are in a vulnerable situation because of something that was outside of the control of absolutely everybody.
Hmm.
And it could happen again. So convincing people to open, like, to keep guaranteed annual income as like a permanent thing would mean that if and when, and it will happen again, this happens again, it's not going to be the how do I pay my bills that it is this time. And like, it's not like a case like, oh, we introduce it when emergencies happen. It's just something that's always there as like
Hmm.
a net. And like, that's what it is really. Because like, there are people that argue that if people if you didn't like if it weren't for work, nobody would, like, everybody would sit on their asses and do nothing all the time, which is not true because the human condition is striving for meaning.
Yeah.
So people are going to work, they're just not going to work jobs that mistreat them or
Yeah,
take
they might
advantage
sit
of them
around. Yeah, they might sit around and try to start a worker, or a network of worker-owned cooperatives with their friends,
exactly.
right?
Which I guess people who like to take advantage, like work off the back of their employees to make mass amounts of profits, are going to be like, oh no, if you which they're the voices that are saying that if you people wouldn't work if they didn't have to survive. And it's like, but yeah, they would. They just wouldn't put up with crap.
Too
They
true,
wouldn't be
right?
taken advantage of. That's the key difference. Would be voices that are calling for they're the ones that, anyway, sorry. I am in tangent mode today. This is
I don't think you have anything to apologize for.
oh good.
Makes for good content.
Good. Because I
Yeah, you
do
should.
feel like I'm anyway. 10100 cooperative system, because I've just opened this
Oh,
recipe for the locally owned, operated, and funded network of businesses that cater to the needs of the local community. Proposal to start 10 businesses, 100 people, bringing $100 monthly. Take a metaphorical whiteboard on the side of grammar suggestions. Go away. I'm trying to read this. Take a metaphorical whiteboard to the left. On the left side, create a single column of blank lines. There can be many lines, but there needs to be a distinction for the top 10. Take the rest of the board and make the list of names. There will be distinction made from the top 100. Every person who adds their name to the list commits to the following. Bring $100 a month to add to the pot where we are going to use as capital to finance co-op enterprises. Be willing to party. Be willing to support the 10 businesses that end up being ratified by the 100. Be willing to supply expertise, experience, labor, and or referrals, i.e. sales, to the 10100 co-op. By adding your name to the list, you gain the right to propose a business on the left column. Each business would be costed out with a budget for startup and projected quarterly costs. To add person as each person adds their name, they get to select the different proposed businesses they would like to participate in or support. A new business or are proposed. Each person who already signed up will be given an opportunity to review and indicate their level of support. As the list of businesses and people grow, eventually there will be a total of 10 businesses that will have the unanimous support by 100 people. These 10 will become the core businesses of the 10-100 co-op. Once the 10-100 threshold has been reached at the first opportunity, all 100 will commit to meeting on the next last Sunday of the month. The next last Sunday? Oh, okay. That does make sense.
Yeah, the last Sunday of the month. So if we,
the
if we
next last Sunday of the month. Yeah, it took me a minute. I was like, is it the next Sunday or the last Sunday? Oh, it's the next last. It does actually. It just threw me for a second there. My brain is mush sometimes.
I'm
Minimum
sure
of
I worded it poorly.
no, my interpretation of it was just slow on the uptake. It makes sense. The next or the preceding maybe. I don't know.
It's just like the idea of making the last Sunday of the month. At this point, it might be the last Monday of the month, because we're when I wrote this, I don't think I'd started the Monday meetings yet.
Okay, well,
Yep.
Yep. Anywho, all to 100 will commit to meeting in the next last Sunday of the month or Monday, as things will turn out. Minimum
Yep.
of 2 weeks cutoff. At that meeting, the 100 will ratify. I scrolled too fast. At that meeting, the 100 will ratify the bylaws. The 10 proposed businesses incorporate as limited liability corporation and elect from amongst ourselves the initial board. At this point, we will contribute their $100 and will be entitled to 1 share, 1 vote. No one can pay more and gain more shares. After this has been done, we party for the rest of the afternoon, evening. We get to know everyone. Next month, we gather again on the last Sunday of the month, bring our $100, a quick review of the finances is given, and then we party again. On the third month, we gather again, but this time, in addition to the financial summary and party, we'll be given a chance to vote on which of the 10 businesses we're going to start first. Qualified businesses to vote on will be based on what we have in the bank compared to the initial startup budget. If no business's initial startup is less than the amount in the bank, we just move on to the party. Rinse, repeat, and every quarter we get a chance to vote on which businesses we start first.
Yeah, so this was the beginning of it was going to be like a recipe guide for how to create a cooperative.
Yes.
That's sort of like the preambling notes. I think on page, what is this, 3? You can see sort of like I was working on a more like point by point outline sort of thing. So the co-op structure and compensational proposal. The 10-100 co-op has the following assumptions built into it. 1, every person who puts hours into a shift will be compensated with the livable wage. A, the livable wage will be ratified by the 100. B, every co-op shift will be guaranteed the living wage. Subsection 1, a shift in the cooperative will be 4 hours, i.e. an 8-hour day would be counted as 2 shifts. All right, so probably get into the weeds. Point number 2, any surplus that is generated after ongoing business expenses and future business investment has been factored in will be split between the members of the cooperative once per quarter. The basis for division will be based on the amount of dividend shares a person has earned over the quarter, max of 5 a week. Not listed here, but it's 65 per quarter. Dividend shares are earned in the following ways. A, work at least 1 shift, 4 hours in a co-op run enterprise in a work week. B, work full-time hours, 36 hours, at 1 or more cooperative enterprises. C, manage co-op run enterprise. D, refer sales to cooperative run enterprise through sales referral and discount tracking. So you can definitely see where my mind was at when I was writing all this. As the co-op grows and more enterprises are established, then more benefits will be assumed by the co-op for the benefit of all, including supplemental medical insurance, drug plans, full dental, RRSP, RESP, childcare, mental health, housing, debt consolidation, buyback, etc., as ratified by the 100 to be implemented as the co-op grows. Think of them as like stretch goals. Hey, once we get 3 businesses up and established, the co-op will begin to fund the full dental insurance plan. Um, and then once per quarter, at the same time, dividend shares are distributed. Co-op members will be given an opportunity to propose prepared dividend projects. Ugh. These can range from one-off projects, hobby businesses, group discount purchases, group vacations, etc. So clearly, I was writing this before I'd come up with a more um, structured idea of the adjunct business, which has a surplus mandate.
So it definitely
Is
needs editing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this is a living document. So it was my hope that this would eventually become a living document. Um, I think to that end, I had another one. Oh, actually, I was going to make a cleaner version here. See what you think. Oops, get shareable link. Oops. Here's a different one. So this is the alpha blueprint. So I started this one night and then my brain died. However, I think you'll definitely get a sense of a little bit more organized way of going about trying um, to kind of organize, like almost like a textbook or a handbook for how to do this. A dungeon master's guide, if you will.
Nice.
Hmm. Or player's handbook, member's handbook. There we are.
You turn D&D into
You know what? I often think of when I think about how the board would operate. So like I fantasize if okay, so what if happens? We get the 100 people and we elect the board, and they elect me to be the head of the board. Cool. It's a healthy fantasy. Everyone has it, I'm sure. At any rate, point of the matter is, uh, I often thought about like how would I want to set up the running of the central administration, which the board would be responsible for, which would basically set the tone for uh, the whole enterprise, the whole cooperative. And I often thought, you know what? I'd love to make sort of like the meeting room kind of look and reflect like Star Trek, The Next Generation, you know? And we'd have like different members of the board would be like the different positions on the bridge, and totally at some point by the time we get at
when nerds
least
start businesses.
yeah. And we totally need a business's counselor. Like we need somebody whose job it is to go around and make sure that everyone is doing good, like the
I can
like
do that.
Sure, absolutely. And it would be the role of ship's counselor, or uh, cooperative counselor sort of thing. And you can have a whole team of people, because once you get like 100 people in, like once we get the 10 businesses up and running, I'd be surprised if we could contain it to 100 people. I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see how much we could grow if we end up. Um, uh, because and that brings up a very intriguing conversation as well. I don't know if we've had it yet about strategy of, do we continue to grow and consolidate so the 10-100 becomes like 100 with 1,000, or do we just be content with creating a locally focused democratic um, syndicate almost of different businesses that is just big enough that it can do really well, but just small enough that you have the potential of learning the first names of everybody that is a member, that is a co-owner of the enterprise that you're a part of. Um, and I think there's some wisdom in that. Like I think a lot of the problems that we have inherent in capitalism, um, with unlimited growth, comes from this driving need to constantly grow, like, and it's destroying our environment. Whereas if our driving need isn't necessarily to grow, but just to make sure that we're covering our bases, that we're making a surplus somewhere, or that it all works out in the wash, right? Whether or not we made obscene profits for the boss, you know, like,
Yeah.
we're the
We will
boss.
not have somebody on a pedestal that high making that kind of ridiculous demand. That is the one thing we will eradicate,
I
which is
mean,
like the fundamental thing. No more 1% sitting on the top on this high pedestal making like maybe a decision a day and, going to bed on his bed of gold. Freaking
preach it,
what's the character?
Scrooge McDuck.
Scrooge McDuck. Yes, yes. No more Scrooge McDucks telling the rest of us to work our asses off so we can go swimming in a vat of coins.
All right. Yeah, Jeff Bezos, right? I found an
Oh,
Amazon card downstairs and I'm looking at it and it's like, I could really stand to
I
buy some stuff
refuse to
off of Amazon,
join.
and they've already got the money. So I
I
might as well
mean,
utilize it.
I've been ordering some stuff off Wish, and my
Yep.
fear is that it's the same, and I just haven't heard about it yet.
Mm.
Um,
Are you familiar with Alibaba?
no.
Are you familiar? Okay, so check out Alibaba. It originally was because we all know everything comes from China, right?
Yeah.
But you and I can't buy stuff from China. We have
No.
to go down to the store and buy stuff from them that they bought from China, right?
Yeah.
So Alibaba was the first time that you and I in the West could, without having to go to China and do a whole bunch of relationship building and shaking of hands and greasing of palms and whatever. Sorry, not to imply that China greases palms, but do the hobnobbing that
Businesses
you
in
need to do.
general.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of having to,
Have grief spawns. It's not a geographically specific thing.
yeah, and
It's
it's,
a
yeah, very
capitalist
true.
thing.
And we all know that China is famously socialist capitalist society. Any rate,
Authoritarian leadership. Cough.
any rate, Alibaba basically gave a way for you and I, Joe Average North American consumer, to be able to buy 50,000 worth of things directly from Chinese factories without having to go through all the business rigmarole. So it was a way of getting bulk sales in a way. So you probably saw a whole bunch of like liquidation stores and other things sort of pop up in the early 2010s. That was kind of a result of Alibaba.
Okay.
So then there's AliExpress, which is like Alibaba, only instead of having to bulk purchase 10,000 items, you can just buy one thing. And they then go around and collect all the individual people buying one things, and then they turn around and buy the 10,000 items from the factories, and then turn around and disseminate that to everybody else. So and then Wish turns around and takes what is trending and buys extra on top of it that the people don't buy, and then they turn around and market that to everybody else. So that's what Wish is.
Okay.
So Wish is Alibaba's Wish is AliExpress's afterthought, which is after Alibaba, which is giving you and I direct access to the West, which, to be honest, I would entertain the notion of at least discussing that as a way of gaining uh, merchandise to sell to the community.
Yeah,
And
there's so many things on Wish that they're saying, buy local, but I'm looking at the stuff that I am interested in or, I need on Wish, and it's like, where do I buy a green screen in Owen Sound?
yeah, exactly.
Nobody sells it.
I bet you there is a guy downtown who does this sort of thing. I don't know if he's still doing it, but he was back in September. He had a studio space down on south of 8th Street before 7th. It's on
Okay.
2nd Avenue on east on the east side of the street. Um, you know where the old bookstore used to be there? Just south of there. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm getting caught up into details that don't matter again.
So there was
Um,
somebody downtown doing it.
that's the point.
Okay.
And
That's, again, I would prefer to buy local and support the local economy, but there are some things that like I'm looking at and like how do I get like I bought a giant forest tapestry to hang in my room and I'm going to paint one of my walls green so that it looks like I'm living in a forest in my bedroom.
yeah,
And like where do I get a giant forest tapestry? Now I realize that's not an essential thing. I
no,
mean, it is for my. Yeah, I'm nesting. It's a mental health thing where like I turn my house into as comfortable and as comforting a space as possible, and I'm continuously doing it and changing it and altering it and improving it in ways because I'm like that. I'm a nester.
I just got an idea about having like a side business or where your house gets renovated.
Oh yeah,
Where you did, yeah, exactly, right? Where you draw up a budget where the budget is, I need 3 laborers and 1 designer to design whatever this is, and then 3 people of skilled or whatever to build it, and it's going to cost X amount of money for the supplies and the materials, and then I'm just going to keep putting my dividends into that until I get it, and then boom, it happens.
yeah. That's a great idea. Yeah,
That's what I
because
love about the 10100. It provides an avenue for
I'm
that sort of thing to
glad that
happen.
my little tangent was able to be inspiring because I'm tangenty today.
But this is
That's what I
precisely
do. So like I ordered that on Wish, but I also feel guilty because it's like, oh, like is there a place in Owen Sound that could order me a giant freaking tapestry of a forest scene?
absolutely.
And I would rather not go to Walmart if I can avoid it. But like, where do I get a button maker? I want to start designing my own little like logo-y things and sell stickers and buttons on the side to make a little extra money.
Yeah.
I need a button maker in order to do that. I bought some like and I bought them at Walmart and I feel bad about it. I should have at least gone to Staples. But I got some sticker paper. But Coats and Best is only open to buy like at the moment is only open in order to buy hand sanitizer. So like I guess I could knock on the window and be like sticker paper.
Jeez.
But
So,
I'm
finishing
in a
up the idea.
quandary is my point.
I just a thought that I had had earlier, which got dissipated, has now come back home to roost. Um, with regards to the artist question, here's a proposal. Tell me what you think. If in your side business you're setting up for to make art, if you, the individual member, are supplying the supplies, the materials, and the only thing the cooperative is doing is compensating you for your time, then I would argue that whatever you produce is yours to do with as you want. Um, Whereas if you are setting up a side business to fund an art project, more than just your time, but also including the materials, so the cooperative, although you know it's still your money, but it's being done through the cooperative. All right, I'll finish the thought and you tell me what you think. Um, uh, if the business proposal includes the materials and the supplies, so the cooperative through your dividends is providing the materials, you know, all of it, uh, then at that point, it would be uh, it would be owned by the cooperative. What do you feel? What's your guts on that?
It's tough because like when you're talking
Ooh.
about creative art projects and things like that, for like, or for me, and technically, like if you think of the artist co-op downtown, I think the artists, even though they're submitting stuff and they're taking time to sell it in the co-op building, their art is still technically theirs.
Okay.
And I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it
yeah.
would be a hard sell if somebody was like, for me, I'm drawing these by hand and whatever, and then scanning them into a computer and printing them off and then stamping them into either buttons or stickers or things like that. And
So
that's just like a little extra money on the side or whatever. But I would think that like if the co-op is supplying them, because it is a hard sell,
yeah, I
that
just
the
mean
money that you generate
own from the
from
aspect
those.
of who gets the right to sell it afterwards, like or to pocket the money afterwards. I don't know
I
if that
think it
makes a
might be a
distinction.
percentage thing. Like either
Yeah.
you're creating like a certain like 10% or maybe even 30 or 50% if all your supplies are being provided, and it's
Hmm.
not like a side businessy thing like an art project that the cooperative has decided to fund. That a certain percentage of what you make can either be on the side of your art projecty things, if you're being compensated for both your time and materials that you're making buttons and stickers, for example, with like the co-op, like the 10100 logo, or supporting the 10100 or something like that, that they can then sell in their business, and then you get the rest of the project to yourself. So you're doing sort of both. Or a certain amount of the profit that you make from your own whatever goes back to the co-op. So it could be like a 50-50 split of like
Right.
when you make that money from whatever's things, the fact that the cooperative funded it, they should at least get a percentage of the profits you make from it. But I don't know about ownership, because an artist's art is, unless they decide to sell it to
Yeah.
somebody, then I feel like it's a very like you're a true, like at least for me when it comes to art, it's extremely personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So asking somebody to say you're making this but it technically belongs to us, just it feels a little like a
Yeah.
stab,
It does.
like
Yeah.
it's a little painful.
Hence,
um
hence the tripping up on it. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it is a very sticky, but if you approach them and say like, say somebody wants to make like release a CD or something, and the
yeah.
cooperative is promoting and selling it, and they helped and like they were the ones that you know
Mm.
provided the makings of like the CD cases and whatever, or like not that people buy CDs, or they provided the platform for download or whatever they did, supplies, you needed more, new guitar strings or whatever,
Hmm.
you bought a whole guitar or a new amp or something on the dollar of
You set
the
aside
cooperative.
time.
Only
Yeah.
fair for the cooperative to say, okay, can you pay us back a little bit for what we provided you? Because like I want
Well,
to create this album or the CD, but my guitar's in shatters and I need a new guitar. Okay, the
well.
cooperative can say, we'll buy you a new guitar, but you need to pay us back in whatever profit you make from your art project.
So, like,
Like a
just thinking about
percentage
this.
of goes back to the cooperative as an
Yeah, I
exchange.
think that's probably a better way of framing it or thinking about it. I like the idea of so scenario A, you're an artist and you've set up a side business, the standard artist side business where you get your 8 hours a week based on your dividend thing, and it's pretty standard cookie cutter because it's across the board. Um, I thought about putting a limit on the amount of hours a side business can be in a week, but you know what? I like I like the idea of giving the potential for some people the possibility of letting that side business slash project, our project, become like their full-time job.
Yeah.
And whether it's like and it being as a result of being of that's funded through the dividend shares,
Yeah.
which again, depending on how much of a surplus we're making, um,
I
can be
would
quite a
talk
lot.
to the artist co-op downtown because I do believe, because I did have some art in there, that they provide the space to sell it.
Yes,
They have
and
you
then they
come
take a
in to sell
percentage,
it,
right?
sort of thing,
Yeah.
but you technically, and like you make the stuff, and then I guess you make money in it. So we would be giving them hours paid for the time they're spending making it,
Yes.
and then they're selling it in whatever way they can, their own
Maybe.
way, because they're not in, maybe unless we open our own co-op, but then that would be that would be competition for the other. Maybe if we had our own little gallery.
Well, then
There are
again, because like,
galleries in town,
yeah,
but
and
it
and
is
that
more
that's where I was going.
competition or whatever. But say that the artist in question is then selling their art, then that gallery, whatever gallery has is selling the art on behalf of the artist, gets a percentage of what they make.
So why don't we like? There's a really easy way I think to fix all this. So scenario one, I am a member. I've created a side business, the standard 8 hour a week side business artist package, and I am supplying my own supplies. So I'm just getting paid for the time, and I've got a studio. It's that I do it in. It's not in a cooperative studio. It's in my own house, which may or may not be a cooperative house, but whatever. It's in my place, and I just get paid 8 hours to make art. Yeah. Maybe it's in my case. If it was me, I would be. I'd have 8 hours where it was my job to make music, to do music projects and to maybe get together with a band or whatever it is. I would just need to be, show that, yeah, 2 days this week, 4 hours on Tuesday, 4 hours on Friday, got together with my band, and that's what we did. you know, and um, in a case like that, I mean, I'm not making any money as a band in
No.
music. So I think that's fine. So go back to the traditional art thing. I may be making art. I may be probably I'd make more sculpture rather than paint. So I would make sculpture, and I would with the sculpture. I'm going to keep it. It's my own personal use. Everything's fine and hunky dory. I supply the materials and supplies for my next sculpture, but I want to turn around and I want to sell it later on. But I'm going to sell it privately out of the back of my trunk in the middle of some nondescript alley somewhere. So it's fine. I get $20 for my sculpture of a penguin. I don't know. And from there, the next alternative is I create the sculpture, I supply the materials and supplies. Once again, I get paid for my time. But then I want to put it up for sale in our local tourist trap gift shop that we have down at the um, Sauble Beach, right?
Yeah.
And no problem. The cooperative does have a gift shop, tourist trap, and where they sell things with artists from around the community on a consignment basis. So whatever it is that the price tag is agreed upon, which would be figured out between the one of the people who was either managing or one of the members there who was running that particular tourist trap. Um, would set the price or would agree upon the price with you, the artist, or me, the artist, as the case would be. At that point, then it would be probably a percentage. I would get whatever the percentage of the thing would be versus um, uh, what the cooperative would do. Okay, final scenario. I don't supply. I have a really big art project, really big sculpture that I'm making. Um, And what would be a good percentage split between the cooperative and the artist, do you think? I think 50-50 is too
It's
much of an
pretty
ask.
high.
Yeah.
The artist co-op, if I remember, I think they maybe took between 10 and 30.
Yeah. That
So
would seem.
I think what we need to do is talk to the artist co-op about how they would do that, or how they structure
Hmm,
that.
I
Because I
bet
can't
you.
remember. Just
You
talk
know
to
what?
some. You even talk to one of the artists that's in it. Maybe call Jana Miller, and ask her, because she still works and sells stuff through the co-op. That she would
And
know what at least what the percentages are and the structure of it. I don't know who's running it anymore because Morag opened her own thing. Um, so maybe somebody else is in charge. I'm not sure.
and I know that James Menzies uh, she was involved with what's her name? I'm trying to struggling to remember her name. Pretty sure he said that she was involved with the artist co-op. So I'm sure we could probably bring her in here as well to talk to us about how that whole thing was set up, or at least how it used to be, as opposed to how it is set up now. But
Oh, Caroline.
there it is.
Yes. Yeah. I was thinking
Sweet
Jana Miller
Caroline.
is already like his whatever and is still involved with the co-op, so that's his sort of stepsister. Because
Ah,
Jana Miller is Caroline's daughter, and she's still in the co-op, which is why I suggested her, because she's got the up to date
ah,
and the up and up and how it's all working.
peachy.
Caroline used to run it, so she'll have way more information about it from like God. I think she stopped working there in like 2012, maybe
Okay,
2015.
excellent.
So it's not like super long ago, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the stuff will be the same. And they did have a pretty good working model, so I'm sure maybe they're keeping a lot of the stuff running the same way. So she would definitely be another contact to talk to about how do you structure that, what's the percentage, and how does it work so that artists can make their art and are able to function and be artists and still have a like and mean, but we can also support a business that
Yeah,
sells their art downtown, because it's
and I
that is a delicate balance.
yeah, and I think a
Right.
commission of like between, or not a commission, but like a cut of sales between 10 to 30% is definitely within the realm of negotiation.
Yeah.
But having it standardized so that it's like, the manager's friends get 30%, but Joe Schmo person who doesn't know anybody gets 10%. No,
Yeah.
we need to have
It's
some sort of process in place. So
it does, yeah. So it's definitely something else to consider, because I think since we are dedicated to the community and increasing, what the well-being, not just like the financial well-being of people, but also like psychological well-being of
mm,
anybody who's involved in our co-op, but as many people as possible in the community, that that it's extremely important that we get this right.
yeah,
Because we're not just in it to like make as much money as quickly as possible. We're in it so that there's a better alternative for people. So
yeah.
definitely, you know
I'm
when it comes
also
to
in it
art,
because this is the only way I'm ever going to be able to retire. Really.
my
Um,
retirement plan is to, yeah, I think I'm going to run away and join a Buddhist or not a monastery, not a not a
convent.
convent. Thank you. Um, because if you've got debt, they raise money in order to pay it, so that you can just focus on being a meditator and stuff. And like there have been times when I have genuinely considered going. I'm just not ready to give up certain things. Like I
Well,
like my comfortable space, my stuff, music. They won't let me bring my electric guitar. um
good.
I have
By the
there are
time we
certain
hit
things I'm
seven
not ready to
businesses,
give up, but when I get older and like I don't need as much stuff and I'm not well enough to like play guitar or do things like that, it's like, okay, it's time for me to get rid of my worldly possessions and prepare for, the inevitability of death and the decline of my health, and I'm going to run off, and that's my retirement plan.
you know what
Because
the
I'm old.
brilliant part, my retirement plan is that the 10100 eventually grows to such a point with such a housing program that we just create our own little retirement community,
Oh, that
Housingville,
would be lovely.
right? Where we just
Oh my
that
God, we could improve the retirement situation. I mean, this is long term, but like considering how many people get sent into, retirement homes because their families can't support them, that could be another like side business or side project of the
yeah,
cooperative, is that the members, if they have their homes, that they part of their health thing, like their health insurance, carries on into their retirement,
Yeah.
so that if they need like a visiting nurse to their house, they can afford it.
Oh, and
And they
there's
don't
no.
have to move out of their homes, or if they have to go to, if they have to move into a nursing home of some kind, that they move into a good one.
With all the members of the 10100 cooperative that they've been working with for the past 20-30 years, right?
Yeah, we could open our own
40.
nursing home and make
Yeah.
sure that it's like, because there's so many of them, they're so reliant on, and like, this is the one thing where it's like, what the hell kind of cutbacks? Because like, I think the government's supposed to pay a certain amount into, but I think a lot of nursing homes are strictly for-profit businesses.
I mean,
And you're
yeah.
looking at them and the conditions inside of them, and you're just like, so you created a business to look after the elderly where they are sitting in their own shit for several hours because you don't want to pay for extra diapers because it's not in the budget.
And meanwhile, you've got a bunch of PSWs and nurses who are getting burnt out because they did not get into this profession so that they could watch as senior citizens are disregarded,
Yeah,
while there's no supplies. All right.
yeah. And it's horrifying. It is absolutely terrifying. Any members of my family that have to go into a nursing home, I'm terrified for. I was not happy when my Oma had to be put into a nursing home, and then when she had to be put into like a more full care nursing home, because she had a certain amount of money and she had support from her sons and stuff, so she thankfully got into one where they took care of her as best they could, but even then they had limitations where she was. And thank God, because there were other ones, because there's such a waiting list too for the full care nursing homes. And I think that's
Yeah.
something else that we would need to address. So when we get down the line to that point, we need to talk to nurses, and I know at least two, three that have worked, probably more. Yeah, I know a lot of nurses that have worked in nursing homes. Talk to them about
It's
full
almost like that's one
care,
of our
lighter
primary
care.
industries here in Owen Sound. Whew.
Oh God, actually I have family members that actually opened a nursing home themselves because they were horrified at the conditions of other ones. And they had it split in half, where there was like a door that locked from one side that only, kind of the way that the inpatient care of the mentally ill, because sometimes, as people get dementia and things like that, they need to be sort of locked in.
Yeah.
But the conditions were great in that particular nursing home. They took care of the patients, and there was like the lighter care where people were still sort of functional, and then there were the ones where they got into like where they needed constant
Higher needs. Yeah.
attention, were in the other side, but it was in the same building. There was just like a dividing door between them, and one side had higher security than the other one. So that sort of model is something that we can look into, and have like a 10-100 sort of, like the cooperative nursing home, where you have a side of it where it's like lighter care, and then there's a side where it's like this person can't remember their own name.
But for the person who can't remember their own name, have like a beautiful like inner garden, like a big
Yeah.
open space for them to be able to go outside and explore, where run around,
Enclosed
get
courtyard.
lost in,
Yes.
have like a mini an indoor
I visited a
street.
friend in the inpatient ward up at the hospital, and because they're on the fourth floor of the hospital, there's actually a rooftop area where
Yeah.
there's benches and stuff. So it's like the person can't escape if they or to harm themselves, because
Yeah.
it's an enclosed rooftop space. So we could technically do that, or we could have a main floor, but like my high school had enclosed courtyards.
Yep.
With benches and trees and a garden and all the rest of it that you could go in and sit and have your lunch in.
Were you WHSS too?
Oh yeah. So that I think is essential. There's actually like the nursing home downtown, beautiful. They are lighter care though. They don't have the. So, and I find that like the conditions and the like the beauty and whatever, it's like just because a person can't remember their own name does not mean that they don't need that level of beauty and care. You do not need to have plain white hospital boring walls.
No.
Just because a person has dementia does not mean that they need to that they are, you know, that a sterile, like artless, and, you know, like emotionless, characterless, beautyless space is not going to be detrimental to them just because their brain is quite the opposite. You need more stimulation. It's almost like they've given up. Like the nursing homes with the, you know, once a person gets to that point where it's like, whatever, oh, okay, then you the side of the nursing home with the more functioning people is so much better decorated and warmer and more comfortable, and then you cross that line into the other one and it looks like, I mean, not to rag on hospitals, but it looks
Looks
like
like a
a
hospital.
hospital. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I get it, they have hospital level care, but this is their living space, this is their home now. Just because they need a hospital level of care does not mean they need a sterile environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So having an enclosed courtyard and wheeling somebody in who cannot remember their own name or their family or thinks that it's 1947 or whatever, having art on the walls, having color, having character, having it look like a home. Like, I don't understand why nursing homes have to be sterile just because
Yeah.
the level of care is higher. It does
Well,
not make any sense to me.
and having
Especially when you think of neuroplasticity. If you want to speed up somebody's dementia, put them in a sterile environment with no freaking stimulation. That'll do it every time. Sorry, I'm on a rant because my Oma was showing early signs of dementia. Sorry.
no apologies. No
Oceans,
apologies.
I'm
Yeah.
very I'm ranty today.
That's okay. I'm enjoying it. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
good. There's a lot for you to edit out.
Oh, I doubt it. Because the point of the matter is exactly one of the points of the matter is that this is another possibility that the 10100 could adopt either as a benefit business, which would not have the profit mandate. It would just need to be, um, it would just need to benefit the members somehow,
Yeah.
which it totally would. And also remember, there's no age limit on membership. Because you're an
No.
owner, you're not an employee. You could be a member till the day you die,
And you
essentially.
could be, if you're suffering from dementia, asking a person to do referrals is probably above their
Did I ever talk to you?
expertise. But
Uh,
the people in like the higher like, not that some of them would be able to, but expecting that of them is not fair. But the people in the higher functioning stuff, you could, if they are still a member of the 10100, they're still getting the benefits, and they
yeah,
talk to like their family members or their whatever, or come into their business and they're like, we need, do you know a good mechanic? And they're like, oh, talk to these people, we could still give them a
yeah,
dividend.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
And
you know,
and
for family visiting from outer town, their car breaks down and they're like, we need a mechanic ASAP, and they're like, talk to the co-op.
yeah,
Boom, there's a dividend share
yeah.
for the
There's a
person
couple of
who is
retired
retired
mechanics
and
who
in a
aren't doing
nursing
anything
home.
this afternoon, right?
Yeah, like, it's entirely within the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
um
Which is what I like. The other, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but one of the ideas I've toyed with is the idea of um, earning a permanent dividend share PIP that's generated, like automatically generated every week based on how many years you've worked with the cooperative. So after 10 years, you get an automatic, or maybe not 10 years, but after like 7 years, you earn an automatic PIP. 14 years, you get a second one. Is that too much? Is that too little? I don't know.
would we it depending on the progress of the cooperative itself and where we stand and how much money we're actually generating as a surplus as in that sort of thing to pull from, I think
Yeah.
would definitely affect what we are able to give retirees within the cooperative. Because if
What?
we're offering them a free pip, but we're not making, or like 2 free pips because they've been with us for 14 years, then, but we don't have the money to support that. And suddenly we have a whole bunch of retirees that aren't generating money. Like
Mm,
that's, we need to make sure that we're operating, that we're successful enough as a general cooperative to be able to offer that is the only thing I'm worried about, because we
what
don't,
about?
as much as we want to
Yeah.
look after these people and they matter and they're absolutely important, it's a lose-lose situation if we can't financially support that.
Well, it's, I mean, financially supported. What it does is it decreases the value of what the dividend shares are worth, because it increases the amount of dividend shares that are generated. But normally, when a dividend share is generated, it's because revenue has been generated for the cooperative. People who get an auto share, because I originally came up with the idea of like giving somebody, like a business owner who was bringing their business in, an existing business, into the 10100, in lieu of giving them the full cash amount, I would offer them a permanent, like an auto-generated dividend share every single week. So because they brought in a business that worked, they would just auto-generate one of their shares that week before they even showed up and worked a shift, if they worked a shift, sort of thing. Um, so it was one of the thoughts I had toyed with. I'm not too sure the way the laws work in Ontario. The, it would have to be worded very specific way in order for that to happen, and they would continue to need to be members. So if a dividend share is worth less than, well, $100 a month, so you just need to have your dividend shares worth more than $300 at the end of the quarter, and it's worth it to maintain membership for uh, to gain access to dividend shares if you were a former owner for a business. At any rate, um, with regards to retirees, what if you're a member who has worked for the cooperative for more than X amount of years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, but you've worked a minimum amount of time that you've invested, so you are a cooperative member, right? You're there, and then once you're over 65, you ought to generate a pip a week, so that the you're not compelled to work full-time hours anymore in order to generate dividend shares. And even though you're retired and you're going to have like the Canadian retirement stuff there, blah 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 blah, you will still be able to have shares that you could then in turn invest into things like being at the cooperative long-term healthcare facility. Because the key to benefit businesses is that um, like there's two budgets. There's startup budget, and then there's ongoing monthly, quarterly budgets, right? And the first month of the quarterly budget is pulled from the general revenues of the previous quarter. Um, Benefit businesses would, instead of pulling from the previous quarter's revenues, their operating budget would come from dividend shares that are uh, provided on a monthly basis to those benefits that the members are taking advantage of. So uh, if I was 65 and or I wanted to retire, or I developed dementia and I need to go into a long-term care facility, um, I would go into the cooperative one, and it would be 1 pip a month to for my basically room, board, lodging, all of it, and that would more or less cover it. And any shortfall would be covered by the cooperative business as a whole. And yeah, and then it becomes another benefit for the 10100 business, and another benefit of membership.
Okay.
Um, yeah, does that make sense?
Makes sense. It does, but it's like really complicated for my brain.
Sorry, it's
Would
probably
need to
because
be. It,
it's probably because I'm thinking about it on the fly.
it's fine. I'm also like my brain is tired. So it's like trying to process and memorize and things like that. And I continuously have memory problems and focus issues. That's
I
just
hear
a
you.
chronic thing. So it's not you. My brain just didn't soak it in properly and process it properly. I'm
Very
usually
excellent.
I can do better, but
And
it'll be on record so I can review it later and rewatch the video and be like, okay, now I get it.
I was just going to
But
say,
yeah,
now,
the fact that you have a plan is encouraging, and the fact that you have thought about this, or that you can conceptualize a bit on the fly, is definitely beneficial, because yeah, it's so critically important. If we're in it to improve people's lives and then make sure that they live with dignity, not just as a working class, but once they become the retired class,
mhm.
that they continue to live with dignity, is so critical.
And not
Uh,
just with dignity, but in the community that they were working in before.
yeah,
Because now all of a sudden co-op workers are now their caregivers. Their PSWs are cooperative,
and I
are
think that's
members.
important too, especially for people who might be end up, if they might develop dementia in their old age and stuff. Is that one of the scariest things that my Oma was suffering with and dealing with is absolute fear. She's getting older and more frail, and she's terrified of like having an accident or falling or something like that, and suddenly she's moved into a new place where she doesn't know anybody. She doesn't
Yeah.
know the nurses. She doesn't know the other patients. She has no connection. Even though she's got family visiting, everybody else is basically a stranger, and she was getting too old and too scared to be able to reach out properly and make friends. So the nurses did their best to try and incorporate, but she's having nightmares about the other people, like, the other people in the nursing home and their intentions and whether or not, and she was getting so scared. But if you're
Well,
still surrounded by people that you've lived and worked with for years in the cooperative setting or whatever setting, then these people, you
yeah.
trust these people. As you're getting older, and if you start developing signs of dementia or things like that, and you develop fears and anxieties, you're surrounded by people that you have worked with and trusted, and you know exactly who they are as a person, and you're living with them. It's not a situation of suddenly you're thrust into this whole new place with complete strangers. And I think that is I think that's something in the nursing home, like in the industry and in the existence of our current how we care for older people, that I don't think people are even considering as being something that needs to be addressed. Because older people, they need, like, it's not just their families, they need to know who they're living. Anybody,
Yep.
you're suddenly living in a house with a ton of roommates that you don't know and everything, and you're getting older and you're frail and your bones are brittle, and you are worried that your memories are suffering and you don't know who these people are, and that's terrifying. That's absolutely horrifying
And you've got
for
this
somebody who,
overwhelming sense of you're supposed to be somewhere, but you can't remember where or
yeah,
why. You just know
yeah,
you just know that where you are isn't where you're supposed to be.
and you're
Yeah.
expected to, even the most beautiful, like my Oma was in the most beautiful, most well, with the biggest respect, the most respected, and well cared for, with the best reputation nursing home. But because she'd already been living in a nursing home and she was moved, she was terrified. She
Yeah.
did not want to leave her room unless she absolutely had to. And she was having flashbacks and issues and everything, and her health declined significantly there, because suddenly she was away from the people she knew. She didn't know her neighbors, and she was getting older. And that, not just as this is an old person, but any person,
Mm.
any human being who is in a fragile state, like say you broke your leg, and suddenly your family's like, okay, we're moving you out of your home and you're gonna live with a bunch of strange roommates. You could be 20 years old and that'd still be terrifying. Like, it's
I mean,
not
that
just,
sounds like college, doesn't it?
it does. It does, but like when you're 20 and you're young and everything like that too, you have that resilience and things like that. But as people get older, they don't, and that's something
Yeah.
that the nursing home industry is they don't consider. They just move these people and throw them into new situations. They're like, why is this person's mental state declining so rapidly? Well, maybe because they're living in a hospitalized, sterilized environment with no stimulation
And as
and
Marshall
they're
McLuhan
surrounded by
said,
strangers, and they're
yeah,
in a completely foreign environment to them with nothing to remind them of who they were when they were young, and
yeah.
everything about the place is reminding them that they're old.
And the
Like, it's
medium is the
horrifying.
message, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
What?
is so horrifying. Like the fact that we find that as an acceptable thing to do with our aging population.
Yeah. Like, what does it communicate to you as a human being when you're treated like, a bit of medical, um, I, I don't
Like a
know.
medical burden. Like
Yes,
you're
and
just
and,
you're
we're-
just
and
there and you're
just
feeding.
like an object to be moved around at the
They're
convenience
treated,
of, yeah,
but like the system itself, like the nurses, it's hit or miss depending on the nurse, but a lot of the nurses try their absolute best to do whatever they can to
yeah.
improve
Hats off
the
to
lives of
our
people with whatever they can. But
hats off to our nurses.
yeah, hats off to the nurses. But like the system itself, because I guess it's based on like this capitalist idea of how much money we can make, they're basically they're treated like high maintenance pets. And like high maintenance pets, sometimes they're pampered and they're treated really, really well, but it's also like you have a dog that is getting old and it has mange and is not,
Yeah,
and you're living on a farm, and then it's old yeller. They're
yeah,
all like they're old yellering our old people.
yeah.
And it's not acceptable.
Yeah, this old yeller, this old pampered pet is definitely not going to be able to afford the higher end
No.
pampering.
And that's just
But
it. It's just like, oh, you are like they're treated like objects, but as exceedingly annoying objects that like they're only there to make to create profit.
yeah,
Like
I
they
mean
exist.
that's
Like, yeah, you're lying in a hospital bed and you're dying, but as far as the capitalist system is concerned, you're no longer a benefit to society because you can't provide labor. So you're just going to lie in our lowest, we're not going to put any extra effort into your comfort or safety because
mhm,
you're not because you're no longer useful to us,
yeah.
except in that your family or your retirement funds can afford to put a roof over your head and give you medications, and I guess we'll supply you with diapers, but only
But
one for every 8 hours.
it's not even an issue. Like, all you need to do is
Like,
pay your $100 membership fee,
yeah,
and have worked like 10 years previous within the 10-100, you know and we'll be like, you know what, you gave us 10 years of your life, you're 65, you're not here long for this world, perhaps, maybe, who can say, but you're going to be here a lot longer, and you're going to be playing D&D every day with your friends, because
yeah,
yeah, come on down to
yeah.
play Dungeons and Dragons.
And that's just it. Is like you're moving into a house where like, oh, I worked with this person. We had so much fun. I spent 10 years working with this person. If somebody who is developing dementia is put into our model of, is
Yep.
put into a situation where like their roommates are their former friends and coworkers, and their entire lives were like revolved sort of around, because our lives really do revolve around our workplace and everything like that, and that's part of the issue.
50%,
But if their
50% of our
entire
day.
lives are revolved around this for 10 years, and they're put at least 10 years, and they're put
Yeah,
in this place where they're surrounded by those same people,
and hopefully you like them.
yeah. I mean, if you hated your like your coworkers for the whole 10 years you were there, and you're just like, blah, 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 blah. But I mean,
It's fine. You
there's
don't have to go to the
going,
cooperative
yeah,
place there. Yeah.
you can end up with strangers, but the chances of that, but even the memory of those people, even if you hated them, if you're developing dementia and you're like in your 90s or something like that, or your late 80s and into your 90s, and you're starting to develop this sort
You
of
can
thing,
grow to
the
love
memory
to
of that,
arguing with these people.
yeah, even if you're arguing with these people, even if you're whatever, the fact that you've known these people for so long is maintaining those neural pathways in your brain that are maintaining your functional memory. It's the constant reminder of those people and that everything. It's like triggering memories and stuff, and maintain, and it will slow the progress just by nature of being around the same people, the same sort of
Yeah.
whatever, and like and the same interactions. That it will, even if they hated their coworkers, at least their dementia will be slowed down. You know, like
Okay. New dream. 40 years from now, the 10100 buys up what's left of the Heritage Place Mall and turns it into a retirement community with that almost, yeah. All right. I
dig
got
up that
thoughts.
courtyard down to like ground, or fill it in with like, and put in a like a full indoor garden, like
Oh,
greenhouse situation in the center court.
can you imagine like turning the all like just into like one big huge walled garden sort of area, all along the way? Turning all the storefronts into apartments, having the food court area continue to be a food court area,
Yeah,
right? Oh, it'd be so great.
even like the old courthouse and jail, if you wanted to have like a low remaining meeting time 9-10 minutes, even if you had, if you were living in just like a smaller room kind of thing, like if you wanted a small apartment, and some people do, we could have the option where it's like, or if it's like you have to have a ton of people, the old courthouse has an already walled in enclosed area that we could
Yeah,
just beautify to have a garden for them to work in if they want to,
yeah. But
meanwhile have like
unfortunately, the
people.
walls are full of asbestos.
Oh, that's a problem.
Yeah, yeah.
That'll be why nobody's buying the place, because there's so much that can be done with it. I've have a million ideas to deal with that,
Right?
to do something with that place, but removing asbestos, yeah, that's a problem.
Until
Oh,
we buy it as
asbestos.
a cooperative
Why?
and then we form a biohazardous material waste disposal business where we hire in the people from outside, or we bring in the people from outside to be part of the cooperative, or to who are trained and know how
Oh
to
my
take
God, we
care of
could
hazardous.
use our resources as a cooperative to rescue the old courthouse.
Yeah, yeah,
That
that's a
would be
possibility.
amazing. And recreate it as an artist group, or have part of it as a retirement home for our aging, and there's so much we could do with that building.
Bing, bing, bing. So, just as we have 8 minutes left, there was one stray thought that I did want to kind of finish up, and that was what to do if, as an artist, the cooperative supplies your materials. And this, what I'm thinking, going back to me as a sculptor, I'm going to do a really big project. Like I'm going to recreate Stonehenge out of 67 cars, 69 Chevys.
I think somebody did that.
Well, whatever. Where's John when you need him? Point of the matter is, I'm going to do it, and but I, of course, don't have the material means to do it myself. So I'm going to make it my art project through the 10100. In a scenario like that, I would get paid the money that I get. Um, I guess. How does art work like that sort of work? Do you sell that sort of thing? I need to talk to Mel. I wonder if she would know.
Yeah, I
Or
don't
we
know
need to
how
talk to
that works.
Caroline. Yeah, anyway, the point of the matter would just be like in a scenario like that where the cooperative is up fronting all the big materials, the supplies for that. Um, would a dividend share be enough in terms of
That would definitely depend on the project.
yeah, would because
I was
norm
wondering. So that's definitely something we need to talk to Caroline, and we need to figure that all kind of
yeah.
thing out, because yeah, it is a big old fat depends. But 6 minutes 43 seconds. I had a thought during that where I was wondering if we could offer a pip, if anybody, for like an honorary pip by vote for anybody who in their spare time without funding contributes to the community in a substantial way.
Oh, Well, there's the universal ways, like the four ways of generating a PIP. Um, work one shift, you work your first shift a week, work full-time hours, manage a business, and or refer sales. Like
Yeah,
those are the universal ones. And then each individual business can come up with alternative incentivizing structures, like
yeah.
being
But I'm
altruistic,
wondering,
you know.
as an overall co-op thing, if we offered a fifth pip for like if somebody, for example, decided that they were going to spend at a detriment to their own payment because they were working outside the community, working at the food bank.
Yeah.
So if somebody took time out and were like, I can't necessarily, like, I'm not making the same amount of money I normally would because I'm not putting this money into the cooperative or whatever, but I'm volunteering for the food bank for this many hours, whether the cooperative could be like, good for you, here's a pip.
You know what? We would need to figure out the process for that. It would probably happen on a quarterly basis,
Yeah.
and it would might be one of those things where we might have a committee that's voted by the total the 100 members, that would have so many people on it, and maybe a member of the board, because the board is ultimately the board is who has the power of the purse in the cooperative. They're the ones that have access to the money, legally speaking, and everything else. So um, you and me as individual members, we can't walk into the bank and take out $20 out of the
No.
cooperative bank account, right? So shit, where I was going in that direction. 420. Right. 4 minutes and 20 seconds left.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Uh, shoot, I lost my train of thought. I hate it.
You were
Speaking of
talking
dementia.
$20 for taking time out and volunteering and the process it would take to
Oh
award.
yeah, yeah, yes, yeah. So once a quarter, like during our general gathering, corporate gathering. Oh yeah, somebody could get like 50 signatures from different members saying, yeah, this person has done charity work. Would you consider putting their name forward to the committee? And then the committee, with the submission of like 50 signatures of different members, um, uh, would consider rewarding a special pip to reward circumstances and situations like that. I'd be down for that.
Okay.
And then that
I
would
think it
be,
should be because there are a lot of people that are humble and won't necessarily do it, that they shouldn't necessarily have to vote themselves. If somebody else is like, hey, this guy has not been at the co-op, we're working with the business lately because he went and he's doing
yeah,
this now and this is like important and stuff. Can we award him for this? You
yeah.
know, so anybody, if they notice somebody is behaving that way, they don't necessarily have to vote themselves. They're like, I need the money. It could be somebody else who's like, this person's gone off and done this, and we should probably recognize it, that is set up for that.
You know what I would, here's how I would do it. We would make it a general dividend, so it would be an option. So in addition to cashing out, you could put dividends towards the benefit fund,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And yeah, yeah, and it would be a way of saying, if everybody could, like, maybe once a year put a dividend towards the benefit fund, then that will become the pool from which we those pips are then in turn passed on to other people who are
Yeah.
in need, sort of thing, right?
Makes sense. So
Yeah.
2 minutes and 5 seconds. I noticed that because it's you and me, and we're the ones that talk about this the most, that every single time we talk, it gets into more and more little details and thinking of potentialities for the future. We should probably sign off at that, and hopefully next time we'll have somebody who can help us get started at the beginning, still at the ground level, because you and I at the ground level, we're just like, we're ready to go.
Yeah, totally. And also, I think once a month, at some point, we should start. Maybe not. This is what, April, still.
We got less than a
Maybe,
minute too.
yeah, maybe towards the end of May, we aim towards have a specific Zoom meeting or something similar, where we invite people from the outside specifically to present the idea. At any rate,
Excellent.
you're right. There is a minute left, so we should probably wrap this up in an official sort of way. So
Has anybody told you that you're awesome yet today? Beat you to it again!
there you go.
That's three! That's three of these meetings in a row that I've attended. I beat you to it.
Wonderful. Well done. And with that in mind, thank you everybody who's taken the time to watch up until now. We do genuinely believe that you are awesome. And I hope that we're all going to be able to do something pretty amazing with all this. So with that, I'm going to